Okay. So, hello, friends. We're back. For you teams still working on stuff in this room, I politely ask that you keep the volume down so that the workshoppers can hear stuff. The rest of you, let's run through this. Again, before we start, thank you to Cuckoo, our sponsor, who's providing real-time interpretation. If you need the real-time interpretation, please scan the QR code here, or if you're on the live stream, check the live stream. Is anyone scanning? Yeah, we got a couple people, so I will be patient for a moment. All good? All right. So, on to the presentation. Whoa, hey, let's not jump ahead here. And I need my presenter view because I am needy like that. All right, here we go. So, hello and welcome to our workshop on how to deploy your project. I will note, if you're deploying at 2 hours before the deadline, you like to live dangerously. But let's have some fun with it. Okay, so we will cover deploying to Vercel. Now, to be clear, Vercel is not the only way to do this, but Vercel is one of our sponsors. So we're going with Vercel. And it is actually really nice. I use Vercel in my day job. Well, not I personally. My department uses Vercel to deploy our front ends. And it's pretty nice, pretty stable. They also do have really good communication whenever they have outages or planned maintenance. They're very proactive about communicating. I do personally recommend it. It is quite good. But let's dive in. So today we'll cover why should you use Vercel and what benefits it gives you. We will go over what exactly does Vercel support. We'll go into how to actually deploy your application to Vercel, how to preview those deployments and set up deployment previews for like pull requests and such. We'll also cover some newer stuff. This is the same presentation I gave last year, but with some additions because Vercel has made some additions, including how to set up databases on Vercel, which was really exciting to me because I'm a backend engineer. And lastly, how to set up domains a little bit, and we'll get to that when we get there. Okay, so any questions about the agenda before we dive in? Cool, this one's gonna be a bit short, but here we go. So first, why would you use Vercel? So Vercel is a tool primarily for deploying either front-end or full-stack applications. It is free for prototyping. Okay, so if you're at a hackathon, for example, and you want to deploy your prototype, here you go. And Vercel is very, very easy to use. They've made sure that the developer experience is very solid. Yeah, it's okay, you can come. Also, it's integrated with GitHub, so if you took our advice from the intro to Git and GitHub workshop earlier during the hackathon and you have your stuff on GitHub, this will integrate nicely with it. Again, Vercel is very, very easy, super easy to use, again, easy. It has support for a large variety of frameworks. If you're using Next.js or a bunch of other ones that are on the next slide that I don't remember off the top of my head, it supports a number of different frameworks. It's easy, and by the way, it's really easy. Like, this presentation is going to be short. It's super easy. The first time I did it, I was like, yeah, I'm going to have like a 30-minute presentation I'm going to like really worry about. And then we got it done in like 10 minutes, and I was like, okay, this one's going to be a little bit longer. So what is supported with Vercel? How can you know if Vercel is the thing you want to use? Basically, if it's one of these frameworks, you're good to go. Okay, so if you're doing Next.js, Vercel's kind of full stack framework for React. If you're using SvelteKit, if you're using SvelteKit being their server-side rendering. Astro, which I'm not familiar with, Create React App, if you're doing a more classic style, which is purely front-end. Gatsby, which is interesting, Nuxt, all you can read. I don't need to read through this whole list. But these are all of the big, major, popular front-end frameworks, and Vercel supports all of them. So if this is interesting to you, if you're using one of these frameworks, you can benefit from using Vercel. They also have more frameworks. If you go to the website and you look at the list of frameworks, you can see some additional stuff, but the popular ones, these are covered. So how do you deploy Vercel? Well, first, you need to install Actually, you know what? I probably should have updated this because this was before NPX was a thing. I'm sorry, I haven't tested this. I don't actually know. You might be able to just do npx Vercel. I haven't tried. I recommend trying. But if you want to just have it in your global environment, you can do npm install globally Vercel. And then if you just, in your project, type Vercel, it will detect that you haven't used Vercel for this project. Then it will ask you to log in, and Vercel has many different login methods. And you just go through the login method, and then, you know, it asks you, hey, do you want to deploy the project in this folder? You say yes. And then, hey, do you want to like link to it on your GitHub? And you say yes. And you're done. That's it. You've deployed to Vercel. It's one command and then saying yes a couple of times. Like, I was not joking when I said it was easy. That is all you need. You can also do it via the user interface. You can just go to Vercel. You can point it at your GitHub repository and say, hey, do the thing. And it just works. Like, to me, who's been doing this stuff for like 14 years, this is magic. And it's beautiful and wonderful, and I love it. And because we're going to finish early, I'll go through the UI and show you a bunch of stuff, but I'll run through the presentation material first. So that's all it takes to deploy. Is you just type Vercel after installing it, or do npx Vercel or whatever, hit yes a bunch of times, you're done. Now this assumes that your project is one of the supported frameworks. It also assumes that your project is linked up to GitHub. Otherwise, your experience will be a little bit different. But as long as those things are true, it will be this easy. Any questions about that so far? It's one command. I don't know what to tell you. But preview deploys are a very, very cool feature. So let's say you're working on a team, and you're not the only front-end engineer. And one front-end engineer makes a change, right? And you can see the differences in the code in a pull request. They submit a pull request. You can see the differences, right? But a pull request doesn't really tell you what the front end actually looks like, right? It just shows you the code. But you want to see, how did the front end actually change, right? That's what you care about. You care about the end result for the user. Well, Vercel allows you to hook up to your GitHub project, and whenever there's a pull request, they'll make a separate deploy specifically for that pull request. So you can see, before merging that new front-end code into your project, you can see a preview of how that changed code will display in production, right? So basically, you get a branch preview of your code. All rendered, all deployed, no extra cost, automatically part of your project. It's really cool, strongly recommended. We'll go over how to set it up. So in Vercel, when you go to your project, you log into Vercel and it shows you a list of your projects. You just select the project, and then there'll be a button to connect to Git. It looks like this right here. It's a nice little button. Or sorry, not Git, GitHub. Then it will ask you to log into GitHub. It will ask you to give permissions, all this kind of stuff. You select the GitHub repository that you want to hook up to Vercel. Or rather, I'm sorry, you select the GitHub repository that corresponds to this Vercel deployment. And then you're done. Again, this is very easy. Then the next time someone submits a pull request, Vercel will automatically create a preview deployment, and it will comment into the pull request and say, hey, here's your new preview deployment, here's the link. You click it, and then you can see the deployed code for the proposed changes. Okay? Yeah. Again, that's it. You do a couple clicks, you have preview deploys. It's magic. Vercel is awesome. I love this thing. It's a bit expensive. Well, I don't know if it's expensive. Maybe not expensive. It costs money if you want to do it for like production and like have a full company built on it. But for prototyping, wonderful, spectacular. So any questions about the preview deploy stuff? I will demonstrate it in a minute, but so far so good? Cool. But wait, there's more. I love having the chance to do that in a presentation. I feel like an old-time like TV salesman, which is actually what's on the screen. Vercel, since I last gave this presentation a year ago, Vercel has added better support for backend systems. Right, when you're doing something like Next.js, right, it's a full-stack framework. Right, it has your front end and your server-side rendering, including server logic. But that's not very useful if you can't include a database, right? So Vercel added databases. So if you want to add, for example, a Postgres database, which is like the new hotness, well, actually Postgres is quite old, but these days it seems like everyone is using Postgres. And it is a very good database system. I use it. It's wonderful. I love it. Vercel supports that. You click one button to create it, and you're good to go. So to kind of go through the steps, again, quite simple, but basically you go to the databases page, you hit the create button next to Postgres, you accept the terms because Vercel doesn't host Postgres directly. They actually contract out to another service, but they basically handle all the stuff for you, okay, to hook it up to your Vercel deployment. So you have to agree to that third-party company's terms, which is fine. Then you just enter the name for the database, select a region. They don't have Korea. The closest would be Singapore, so you select the Singapore region. And then, you check some environment variable, or you check which environments you want deployed, development, staging, production, this kind of thing. Once all that looks good, you click connect, spins up a database in a few seconds, and you have a database. Congratulations, you're done, right? Like, I can't, they're so good at this. And then what you will want to do is, in your local environment, in your local project, you'll want to use the Vercel tool again to pull the environment variables, okay? So standard convention these days is to have a file .env. You include it in your git ignore because you want to put secrets in there, and you don't want those secrets to be in GitHub, like we talked about in the Intro to Git and GitHub workshop. And that will actually pull down your Postgres variables, basically the environment variables that your application can use to connect to the database. Okay. Now, if you're not very familiar with database stuff, we're not going to cover that in detail in this presentation. I do recommend checking out the DBT and Snowflake presentation that was given yesterday that goes over how to do data modeling, these kinds of things. But that also does not cover how to connect to a database, but there are plenty of tutorials online for that. It is quite simple these days, much better than it used to be. And with Vercel, they actually make that much easier, which I'll talk about in a second. But note that their Postgres offering works best with a tool called Prisma. Prisma is a JavaScript ORM. If you don't know SQL, you don't know databases, personally, I have a very strong opinion that you should learn the stuff. It's not too hard. But if you're in a hackathon and you don't have time for these things, using an ORM, which is an object relational model, to basically map your objects in code. So let's say you have a user in your code, and it's an object with attributes like username, photo, password, all this kind of stuff. An ORM will basically look at your object, create, well, optionally, depending on how you configure it, create a table in the database with those attributes, and then whenever you save a user in your code, it will automatically update the database. Okay, that's an ORM. So this works best with a JavaScript ORM like Prisma. Another thing to note, for this Postgres database on Vercel, with the free plan, you only get 60 hours for free. But this hackathon's only 24 hours, and you only have 2 left. So it doesn't matter. Also, there is a Postgres package, NPM package, that Vercel has produced. It is designed to just automatically work with a Vercel deployment. So you can basically do import SQL from Vercel Postgres, and then you can just run queries immediately. It's super, super easy. They do have tutorials on their website. They are very clear. I do recommend going through them. And the nice thing, if you're worried about burning through your 60 hours, they do have a default timeout of if there are no queries for 30 seconds, it'll shut the database down, and then your remaining time will persist, which I'll demonstrate in a minute. We're not going to wait for 300 seconds, don't worry. And also, to repeat again, do not commit your .env file. When you do the Vercel env poll.env, do not commit the file. Do not commit the file, because that file has secrets, like your database password. And if someone has your database password, they can get into your database and wreck your application, or worse, steal your user's data, which means legal trouble for you, and you don't want that. Do not commit your .env file. I've seen too many engineers do it, and if I was the manager, I would have fired them. Do not commit your .env file. If there's anything you take out of this, don't commit your .env file, okay? All right, enough on that. Also, another addition that I want to include before we get into kind of demoing stuff, because we still have half the time left. Vercel and many of these other kind of deployment systems do support bringing your own domains. Another one of our sponsors, .xyz or gen.xyz, if you go to their website, is providing free domains for our projects. Don't get too excited yet, though. There's a caveat. I'll tell you about that in a second. If you want to check out their service, you can scan this QR code. And that QR code has basically a PDF that is a guide they wrote specifically for us on how to register a domain and manage it on their service. Each team gets one free domain, okay? And there's basically a discount code in the PDF that's linked at this QR code. I just realized I didn't actually test it, but it's a QR code, so it should work. Can someone make sure I'm not crazy for a second? Does this lead to a PDF? Okay, cool. Got really worried there for a second. I made a terrible assumption, but it worked out. Now, one thing to note, when you sign up for gen.xyz's service, they ask for your address for billing and all that kind of stuff. So you still have to enter your password because it's only 1 year for free. And they don't accept hyphens in the address field, but Korean addresses have hyphens. So I just added spaces and it worked. So don't put in hyphens, it will complain, just use spaces instead. But other than that, it should work fine. I also hit a 502 error when I tried to register. It was like, oh, no, the website's broken. I was like, great. If you wait 5 minutes and try again, it works. No more comment on that. But how do you use this domain with Vercel that you've registered? You can just go to your project settings, and then on the left side, you'll have a menu. One of those is domain. You just type in your new domain that you just set up on gen.xyz. They give you a recommended option, and then they give you guidance on what to set up. You go over to gen.xyz's website, enter those options, and you're done. Basically, your new domain, your site.xyz, will now lead to your project instead of my cool new project.vercel.app, right? Having your own domain is just much simpler. It's better for marketing, all this kind of stuff. There's just one problem. The domains take a while to be verified, apparently. I have not seen any domain name service, domain registrar require verification for registering a domain, but apparently that is required for this. It might be because they're giving us these domain names for free and they're making sure we don't abuse them, in which case it makes sense. But I registered a domain with them at 8 a.m. and it still has not been approved. So don't expect it for the hackathon. But it would be very nice for, after the hackathon, you want to market your application. Having an actual domain is very nice. I do recommend having it. So definitely check that out. So before we end things, we still have 10 minutes left. So let's just look around Vercel a little bit because I've only talked about it. I haven't showed you much. So let's do that. Although please be aware that I did not necessarily prepare to do a demo. So, let's see how lucky I am. So basically this is, crap. That's fine. So this is a project. This is the project that I set up to kind of prepare for today's workshop. You can see that there's a preview deploy here. I can go look at this preview deploy. And this is just basically a website that I was basically just going through their tutorial. I didn't finish the tutorial because I was like, okay, I can see it works, it's fine. But again, if I just submit a preview deploy, which I'll show you a pull request in a second, you'll see a preview deploy. It shows you logs. I have no preview deployments right now, all this sort of good stuff. Now, if I can see, yeah, here we go. So let's say that I want to, oh God, I'm doing this all completely live. Oh boy, I don't know if this is gonna work. It's gonna be great. This is a terrible idea. All right, so I'm just gonna make a new branch. And this is gonna be demo previews, okay? So I'm going to create a new branch here. I do personally recommend doing this either on command line or in VS Code. Don't do it in the GitHub UI like this, because then you're going back and forth between programs. But for demonstration purposes. So I have a new branch here. Oh, God, I can't see. Okay. All right, so I have this branch. I'm getting like right up in the camera. That's awkward. And I'm just gonna make a README change here. So let's see. Okay, so here we go, and I'm gonna commit these changes. Yeah, whatever, that's fine. Oh, there's my email for the whole internet to see. That's fine. Whatever. And then, you know, so now I can create a pull request. So let me get a pull request going here. It does stuff. And let's create this pull request. And now, if I did this properly, which I hope I did, yeah, you can see that previously I hooked up Vercel to this GitHub repository, and now you can see Vercel automatically created a preview deploy here, and now I can see the new version. Oops, that is not the correct link. Now I can see, oh no. Beege, do you even computer, bro? View deployment. There we go. So now I can see my newly deployed version. Now, there's nothing, I haven't changed anything in the UI here. I probably should have changed like the index.js or whatever, but you get the point. When a pull request is submitted, Vercel will take the code in the pull request, create a new deployment, and that way you can look at the main deployment and the preview deployment, and you can compare them and see how your changes change the actual web page. So that's really, really cool, strongly recommended. And then in terms of navigating around the Vercel UI, so I can go, oh God, I can't see. You know what, I'm sorry, let me just do this real quick. Oh no, don't ask why I was Googling that. There we go, okay. So, yeah, we still got 5 minutes. So in Vercel, I can go to storage, and I can see that I have a database here. You can also just click create database over here. But I already created a database before. You can see that it's, you know, I only have 0.8 hours on it, but 0.08 hours on it, but I created it yesterday. This is because, like I said, after 3 hours of no activity, it just shuts down the database for you. Now, in production, that is terrible. You do not want that. But when you're just doing a free prototype, this is excellent because then you don't burn through your 60 hours. You only spend database time when you're like demoing the application. So this is good. Now, if you do want to just go through the 60 hours and not have it shut off, what you can do is go to the settings for the database. And, oh, right, because it's a free account, you can't actually adjust the suspend period, turning off the database, basically. So it's stuck at 300 seconds. So this is only good for demoing, right? Don't do this for like a real site. If you do this for a real site, you want to actually pay for it. But it shouldn't be too expensive, but I haven't checked the price. But yeah, once you create this, you will see that you have your database set up here, and then you can, how am I on time? Still good on time. You can, have too many projects. Let's do this. I'm sorry guys, I didn't have this part prepared. I wasn't sure if I was going to do this or not. Here we go. Okay. So now also, don't stream your .env file on the internet like I'm doing now. That's also a terrible idea. But I'm going to delete this as soon as we finish, so it doesn't matter. But basically, when you do the Vercel pull env.env, this is the file it downloads, okay? Now these are environment variables, okay, that if you use the Vercel SQL library, it will automatically read, so you don't have to worry about reading in the environment variables, checking their values, all that stuff. You don't have to worry about that at all if you use Vercel's SQL library. And then it has, you know, the database to be used. It has the address to connect the database, the password, The URL for Prisma, if you want to connect to Prisma to manage the tables and all that, it is excellent. Basically, it does all the configuration for you. So then, now you don't, so you might be wondering, well, hey, if I pull this down but I don't commit it to Git, how do I get this into Vercel? Well, you pulled this from Vercel. These are the configurations in Vercel that Vercel itself is using. So you can pull these down and you can experiment locally and make sure that everything works just fine. Okay? So that's pretty much all I had prepared. And just to kind of demonstrate again, if you do Vercel, you know, it can say, oh, here's your changes. Oh, I didn't actually, oops. Yeah, this is not how you should do it, because I have local changes here that aren't committed to the repository, which means that I'll have code deployed that's not in version control. Don't do that. That's bad. Don't do what I just did. But I'm just kind of demonstrating the deployment. So this is a little different because Vercel is already hooked up to this project, but just by hitting Vercel, okay, yeah, because I have a bug, because I didn't bother finishing my code. But basically, just by typing Vercel, it'll automatically deploy stuff for you. It's a single command. It's easy. So yeah, any questions? We got 5 minutes, so 4 minutes. I mean, it's like 2 commands that I taught you, so yeah. What's up? Sure. You tried deploying and you get 404? It's possible that you may not have corrected the URL or may not have copied the URL correctly, but I'll come take a look because I can help for stuff related to this workshop while talking about this workshop, so I can come answer that for you. Mike, did you have a question? No? Okay. Any other questions? All good? Yeah, you need to register. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions? Cool. Well, that's it. I'll help you figure out that 404 issue because I think that's okay to help. We're not supposed to help Hackathon team members, but I think because it's related to this and because it's a general issue, it should be fine. But beyond that, I hope everything goes well. If you're just deploying now for the first time with Vercel, cool, awesome. I hope everything goes well in the next hour and a half for you. But good luck with the hackathon, everyone, and internet, bye-bye. I need to end the stream. Where do I end the stream? Nope, where is it? Is it here? Yeah, okay.